Well, hello, that's me again. Today is January 3rd, 2024, and this piece of art really expresses really well what the 2024 should become, and actually it did become exactly what it is, because, we thought it would start with the bank, and my gosh, it did. So we'll start obviously with the fact that there was a terrorist act in Iran against the huge, basically procession of people visiting the grave of slain General Soleimani on the orders by Mr. Trump. This MAGA crowd just, rejoiced, but I cannot even describe enough the depth of the damage which it dealt to the future possible US and Iranian relations. And then if that hasn't been enough, and we have now a situation, as Larry Johnson wrote wonderfully, and he points out about the situation with the Yemen. We have, he absolutely nails it here, and he talks about that looks like the Pentagon has decided it has less to lose by deploying an amphibious assault ship instead of what we know the carrier strike group of Gerald Ford is leaving back to Norfolk. And what Larry says, that means that there will be no more threat of US carrier-based planes attacking targets in Yemen. This is likely to stir up more domestic criticism of Joe Biden and his national security team for failing to act decisively to destroy the Yemeni threat. There are many members of Congress who wrongly believe that all the United States has to do is drop a few bombs or launch some cruise missiles and Yemenis would surrender. Maybe this is an indicator that someone at Pentagon is awake and realizes that launching an attack on Yemen could open a can of worms we are not prepared to close. And Larry is absolutely correct, except for one thing, that it's not many, it's most members of Congress. They have no idea what war is, and their understanding of war is dropping bombs on people who cannot shoot back. Well, Yemenis can shoot back, and evidently they practically paralyzed again the situation around Red Sea. And then, of course, we have a complete collapse of the operation of the Israeli Defense Force, and people openly state that they are just incompetent. And they, after how many, 3 months? No visible results, and Hamas is not destroyed, and it's intact, and what can I say? The atrocity against Gazans continues. But this is just the start, so to speak. But let's start into the more profound news, if you wish. And this is, I cannot emphasize enough the seriousness and profundity of what we are observing. Saudi Arabia officially joined BRICS. And as they report, and it was reported by state television in Saudi Arabia, they host news to the people of Saudi Arabia. The group, which until January 1 included Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, welcomed 5 new members on New Year's Day. Apart from Saudi Arabia, it now includes Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates. Another prospective member, Argentina, made an abrupt U-turn on its succession plans after the presidential election in the country was won by Javier Milei last year. I mean, you know what? First, we forget about Argentina. For all my sympathy to Argentinian people, and my congratulations of them winning the World Cup. I mean, they certainly failed here electing this nut job, who will basically deregulate everything in Argentina, then will sell everything. Well, basically denationalize industries and sell them to the United States. But here also is important part that Moscow has assumed the 1-year rotating presidency of the group for the year. And what is very interesting about this whole situation, and we already kind of see the shaping of the new United Nations, or at least United Independent Nations of the world, we also see the largest and most powerful military, industrial, and oil conglomerate. we have to understand that what we're looking here is the people or countries rather, or peoples, if you wish, who own most of the energy in the world. And this is, I mean, that is absolutely terrifying for the United States. And of course, we are waiting all next year that Mr. Maduro in Venezuela will join BRICS. And of course, everybody understands that BRICS is basically the organization which will be producing new, if not reserve currency, the currency which absolutely makes the rest of the world trade completely independent of the US dollar. And this is already happening, and I'm on record for many years now. This is happening as I talk to you guys. So these are huge news. I mean, they're just gigantic. And then, of course, we have the basically the how to put it politely, ridiculous situation with the people waking up, even in the United States, to the realities of the war. And here it is. That's there is a wonderful video, well, wonderful, all things considered, obviously, how Russians annihilate, German Leopards, Leopard 2s, the best tank allegedly in the world. They are not having a good time in Ukraine. They are being basically annihilated in large portions and large quantities. And now they say that some of them, whatever is left of those tanks, they are not operable because they just broke down. They don't have enough spare parts. But guess what? It's probably true, but it doesn't matter. As you can see yourself, in the real serious war, as was stated many times and as I was predicting for the last 10 years, NATO weapons, NATO technology, American, German, French, what have you, is simply not designed for the real serious combined arms operations. So it's all baloney. And here it is, what in a statement on Tuesday, the ministry said, Russian Ministry of Defense, that Russian military's West grouping had destroyed a platoon of Ukrainian armor not far from the village of Terny. It claimed that Moscow forces had spotted the armored spearhead preparing for an attack, but nipped it in the bud by destroying the tanks with high-precision weapons. Yeah, and one video, if you take a look at it, you will see very fast projectile flying into one of the tanks. I think so. It could be the Krasnopol smart munition. So, but the other ones probably the Cornet, what have you. So the tanks are not having Western tanks are not having good time. And as we know, just throughout the so-called counteroffensive, which is the strategic catastrophe for the West. Forget about Ukraine. That basically Ukraine doesn't have any more real serious army. It's just being ground into the dust by a Russian army. But obviously they have issues. They really do. And yeah, they are not fit for the real serious war. Now we have Wall Street Journal today complaining and whining that the West badly needs more missiles, but the wait to buy them is years long. Yes, it is. It's years long, and fact is there is no actually guarantee that even those missiles will provide any kind of relief, for example, for whatever will be left of Ukraine this year. But the point is that it doesn't work either, especially after, as you already know, Russia continues to attack and launch salvo after salvo of their cruise missiles, including the hypersonic missiles at the targets in Ukraine. And now we have this British Minister of Defense, Captain Obvious. Evidently they have Captain Obvious serving there, which is totally natural. If you graduated Sandhurst, you come out basically knowing nothing about real war. But look at this. Here's the Ministry of Defense. It's of Great Britain. It sounds now almost as Monty Python sketch. And look at this, what they do. Latest defense intelligence update on the situation in Ukraine, 3rd January 2024. And look what kind of update those Captain Obvious provide Captain's Obvious provide to all of us. Since 29 December 2023, Russia has increased the intensity of its long-range strike operations against Ukraine. Its forces have committed a significant proportion of the stock of air-launched cruise missiles and ballistic missiles they had built up over recent months. First, it's baloney. It's not a significant portion, and as I already stated, you can refer to Mr. Putin and to Mr. Medvedev speaking about it last year in the early January, when they stated basically that Russia produces just in terms of cruise missiles several times more than whole West combined. So it's not a big, significant proportion, it's proportion, but Russia has way more than that. So then they say the recent strikes likely primarily targeted Ukraine's defense industry. This contrasts with the major attacks last winter, which prioritized striking Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Russia appeared set to restart this campaign by hitting energy sites in early December 2023. So these are, again, Captain's Obvious, and they state the facts, which are basically, you don't need to have this, funny, stupid headlines called intelligence update. It is all available over in Russian press. Russians openly discuss the issues of the quantities and how and what is being targeted. And of course, it is all related now to the situation which happened with Belgorod. They continue, armed forces of Ukraine continue, at least they try to attack the Belgorod. And guess what? Russians have to now, obviously the air defense was tightened because they attack civilians. And now Russian air defense has to basically reorient itself, not only in defending the military installations, but actually to defend civilian population of Belgorod. And the interceptions yesterday included 2 .U tactical ballistic missiles, as well as 7 rockets from the Olha long-range artillery launchers. Ukrainian artillery, as you know, had attacked the town square of Belgorod city on Saturday, injuring over 100 civilians and killing 25, including children. So these are, and now obviously we have those State Department people who say, oh, you know what, we have HIMARS there, but it's let Ukraine decide to what depths they can launch them. So they basically call on attacking Russian territory and Russian civilians. And this is what actually you would expect from the State Department. But if that hasn't been enough, now we have the situation which has to be really, how to say it, attentively and cautiously judged. For example, today, it's Paris. The French foreign ministry refused to condemn the strikes of the armed forces of Ukraine on Belgorod. The French foreign minister refused to do so, and the Russians talk about that 25 people were killed, hundreds injured, and foreign ministry of France ignored the question basically about what is their position, stating that Ukraine exercises its legitimate right to defense in accordance with the Article 51 of the Charter of the UN. Well, they are full of crap, basically, those people, and as I already stated, there's nothing to talk between Russia and Paris, because these are basically the low-lives who run France into the ground. They will run it into the ground, and we will talk about this now, but the point is, you do not want to even read what Mr. Medvedev said about French, and you know what, you are free to go and look it up. So, and Mr. Medvedev, as you know, he doesn't mince words. And yeah, he said some really nasty things about Mr. Macron and his administration. But then again, you wouldn't expect anybody else in France. They're just gonna be basically replacing one loser with the other. And French voted for that, and they will continue to vote for that. This is my point, which I make constantly. And the same goes, for example, when deeply respected by me, wonderful Mr. Alistair Crook talks yesterday to Judge Napolitana, and he is explaining, and in the most straight words possible, he just says it as it is. He talks about the complete catastrophic defeat of the combined West, including America, and he's talking about America's fatal hunger for honor and glory, which it cannot get. And there are so much more to this conversation that I will be adding in historical terms, because I will have to tell you, and I wrote about it many times in my books, unless you are realized as the continental military power, forget it, no matter what you're gonna do. And, all those ideas of Admiral Mahan and, all this rimland, heartland type thing of geopolitics, which is, by the way, primarily garbage, but all this went into the trash bin of the history now, and the issue is standing, as you already understood, is how you can fight and defend your country. And America never experienced that. That is why America never realized itself as continental power, despite obviously significant contribution of the United States in the World War II to the defeat of Hitler and basically unified Nazi forces of Europe. But do not forget, in terms of numbers, British Empire provided the bulk of the Western Allied forces. But Mr. Crook today, apart from basically stating what that America is done, he has even harsher words for his native Britain. And believe me, when I say British or French, I don't mean all the people. I don't mean just regular folks. No, I'm talking about the political and media and all this so-called academic elite, which is utterly incompetent, utterly corrupt, and it is all across Western world. And if this hasn't been enough, look at this. This is the point which I need to make constantly about economy. Reuters, it's British, by the way. Look how they reported. January 2nd. Eurozone factories ended 2023 on the back foot, with activity contracting in December for 18 straight months, according to a survey which gave scant signs of any imminent strong bounce back in an economy likely in recession. Likely in recession? This is funny. You see, this is the double speak. This is a thought crime in the combined West today to state things basically as they are. So you are in 18 straight months of the contraction, and they still allegedly are supposedly in the recession, and there will be no signs of any strong bounce back because Europe now is on the way down. And here is, let's take a look what is happening in the locomotive of Europe, and this is of course Germany. It used to be the locomotive of the economic activity in Europe. Here it is. Mr. Scholz, and guess what? This is important. This is extremely important. And this is also extremely important in the sense not just of the political or economic issue. It is important on how, for example, Germans think. And there we go. And what is important here, that it is basically a conversation which was glad reported today by Mr. Waldemar Gerd, who himself former Bundestag member. And here he says that German society is enraged by all of Scholz's policies. Industry is in decline, people are losing their jobs, the country is in economic crisis. Exactly. It's not any more recession. We are looking at the Great Depression basically crawling inside not only just Germany, but the other European countries. And here says that the Germans could forgive the Chancellor for his corrupt sins if they were provided with personal wealth, but it is not happening. Oh, I agree with this. And hey, it's as much as cynical as it sounds, but yeah, people want to live well, and they vote for people who allegedly can provide this living well. But here is the issue, and this is what Alistair Crook says, this is what Larry Johnson says, this is what Scott Ritter says, and this is what I'm saying for years. There will not be repeating in terms of as it was before. There will be no as it was before. This is completely brave new world in which West is just the peninsula of the major colossal, Eurasian landmass. And they are same goes for them in economically, and at some point of time, even the, crown jewels of them, for example, like commercial airspace, we're talking about Airbus, they will start to have issues too. It's inevitable. And here it is. As a result, Scholz is like a hedgehog in pins and needles in scandals. This was told to the newspaper Vzгляд by ex-deputy of the Bundestag Waldemar Gerd. Earlier, Western media reported that Scholz could resign early. Okay, yeah, sure. And here is what Gerd says. The nationwide strike, which starts on January 8, will show the full extent of the accumulated popular anger against Scholz policies. And in order not to completely lose control over the situation, the government can really make a casting, putting Chancellor Boris Pistorius in chair, said former Bundestag deputy Walter Gerd. Well, who is Mr. Pistorius? Same big mouth, Russophobic, nut job, who is now, he was what, Bundeswehr, Minister of Defense, the same incompetent, illiterate hack, which are basically most of the political class in Germany. Another thing, that's what he says, Waldemar Gerd says, another thing is that such a replacement will not change anything, including in the issue of the well-being of German citizens. Therefore, I hope that people will not agree to this kind of bargaining. You know what? I'm not sure. And here's why I'm not sure. Because the same Gerd says, look what he says. For example, where he complains that the automotive industry on which the full power of German economy rested has completely lost ground. And this is despite the fact that every sixth job in the state depends on this industry. The source gives an example. And he's talking about, I would like to remind you that the cost of energy resources is directly related to the idiotic desire of the Scholz government to impose sanctions against Russia, Gerd concluded. Well, they also are killing their economies by the green agenda, and those psychopaths, well, they're not psychopaths, most of them are cowards, so they're sociopaths of the Grüne and all those environmentalists, and so those are basically extreme radicals who are killing their economies. They will kill people, believe me. It's already starting indirectly, and at some point of time in Europe, it might come to the actual violence by them. So, and here what he says, and this is why I really do not believe anything gonna change in Germany, and this is why, for all my sympathy to German people, and what they are going through, nothing gonna change. Here why it is so. This is La Repubblica, actually, Italian reports that the sources of which admit a change in German Chancellor from Scholz to Boris Pistorius, now Minister of Defense. At the same time, Pistorius himself is the most popular politician in the country after President Frank-Walter Steinmeier. Okay, there you go. You basically gonna be agreeing to one junk being substituted with another. Trash. Recycling of the trash, literally. And guess what? If Mr. Pistorius is popular in Germany has no chance at all. And a fact is, you say, well, why do you say, talk about so much about Germany? Well, because actually there was this whiff, there was a sense of the very big time reconciliation when Mr. Schroeder was there, who is a personal friend of Putin. There was a lot of a good kind of feeling towards Germany and Germans. Forget about it. Then Angela Merkel came to power, and the rest of the story. And they are prostitutes, and then we have the situation with the Nord Stream, and there you go. Those guys, just complete trash. Now, if that hasn't been enough, so now we have, from Poland, Radek Sikorski. Look at this. Radek Sikorski today says, we should respond to the latest onslaught on Ukrainian language that Putin understands by tightening sanctions so that they cannot make new weapons with smuggled components, and by giving Kiev long-range missiles that will enable it to take out launch sites and command centers. Well, Radek Sikorski is the same trash, product of the Cambridge, Oxford, and the same as his wife, and and Applebaum, such illiterate shyster neocons, who they all settle accounts with Russia. Obviously, they have no clue about what real industries are, that Russia produces all own components and electronics, including their microchips, which are, well, of course, we know that probably because Poland supplies Russia still with the washing machines, Russians probably take those chips from washing machines. But the point is, this is the level of morons and psychos who want to settle accounts who run Europe. So Mr. Alistair Crook in this case is absolutely correct. It's over for the West. It's over. It's not recoverable. And just to demonstrate to you to what degree of the imbecility and to what degree of absolute lack of understanding of the reality they are, here is another, specimen from, Mr. Anatol Levin. Well, the guy, he hates Russian gods. He is from somewhere, his roots are from somewhere from Baltic, whatever nobility. And because he is ignoramus, because he is also a product of the political science from Cambridge, that means he has no normal education, and especially he has no clue about anything war-related. He talks about that Ukraine should take a page out of Finland's fight with Stalin. He wrote it on December 21, and guess what? He thinks that somehow it could be arranged that, let's repeat that thing. And here it is. Similar to the initial phase of Russian invasion of Ukraine, Soviet officials predicted that Helsinki would fall to Soviet troops in as little as 3 days. However, despite the Soviet outnumbering the Finns, and we know this story, which is actually not true, and he's talking about, though Finland was eventually defeated and forced to concede about 11% of its territory, the Finns scored a moral victory. Well, Mr. Levin is a shyster from the geopolitics because, and actually when you look at the Quincy Institute, most of people who write for it are shyster, even those who have used to be professional military, like Mr. Basevich, who evidently doesn't understand what real war is. But guess what? Even explaining to Anatol Levin, because he is a product of the British system of education, which is complete fraud. I mean, basically, except once you remove STEM, everything else is fraud. They operate on wet dreams, or on the hopes, on the garbage numbers, garbage data. But let me remind you again, and why I continue to talk about it, and I say because this is very important and it has to be ingrained in your minds, because obviously I am, by the incredible stream of events, I am basically captured by this whole situation, and I have to provide obviously political commentaries. Many people write me that, oh yeah, please do continue to do political commentaries. But before I so to speak continue to do this, I have to constantly remind you this. Mr. Svechin, the strategy, and that's what he explained. This is 1927. And particular strategic policy must be devised for every war. Each war is a special case, which requires its own particular logic rather than any kind of stereotype or pattern, no matter how splendid it may be. The more our theory encompasses the entire content of modern war, the quicker it will assist us in analyzing a given situation. And here is my conclusion for today. And this is, for example, what Russians know. They know it on the level of the top political level. They know in the top military level. They are guided by it. West doesn't have strategic analysis. None. They are not taught. All these games with the artificial intelligence, all those patterns on Wall Street, it's all garbage. It's all crap. It doesn't work like this. You need to have the very highly developed institutional and personal intuitions and abstract thinking. And when you look at these people like Anatol Levin or this Radek Sikorsky or whoever you look at this, let alone I'm not sure that Mr. Biden has any kind of, abstract thinking, or for that matter, any thinking at all. But when you look at this and you say, are they that stupid? Yes, they are. They are products of the Western education, which completely destroyed ability of people to plan, basically generalize, operate on intuitions, and be educated in the full essence of this word. That means what? Being able to put together things, analyze them, and then synthesize them. That is why when you look at, for example, US military, it's like, are they that stupid? Well, then probably, I don't know, maybe, as Larry Johnson correctly stated. But then again, we are old school. Larry Johnson is an old school. We are after our 60s and 70s, you know. So we're old farts. But we are the ones who still caught, well, I caught obviously still very much intact, very strong Soviet education. And those people have been graduating from the institutes which are still were working at that time. Now, look at people like Mark Milley, the whole national security cabal of neocon cabal in the White House and State Department. Those people have no clue. They don't understand what they are dealing with. And this is what I wanted to tell you today about. And let me put it this way. The 2024 sadly started with a bang. But there are some already good news, especially with the expansion of BRICS, which basically shape now our world. And nobody really cares what Great Britain, Germany, or France think about. And yeah, there's nothing to talk them about. So, and as usual, guys, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. Those who can afford, please support me on the Patreon or buy me a coffee too. And have a nice rest of the week, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.